Hey Vince, how you doing?
Hey there, Kelvin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. I am stoked to have you in on the show. And at the time of this recording, you just launched something really exciting on Product Hunt. So congratulations on that one. And
Thanks.
yeah, definitely. So I know it could be a lot of work launching something, but also you took the time out to like record this TKYT session with me and also show me the thing you just launched. So that would be fun. So before we geek out on what you launched. I don't want to give anything away yet, even though the title
Okay.
says so. Can you just introduce yourself? So tell us who Vince Canger is, what you've been doing, and a bit of a fun fact about you. I always like guests telling me some fun facts. Right? Let's
Cool.
loosen up a little bit.
All right. Cool. Cool. Yeah. Thanks again for having me. Like you said, my name is Vince Canger. I'm the DevRel person at Wasp. Yeah, like Wasp is a full stack React Node.js Prisma framework um, that I like to say comes with superpowers, and we'll get into it a little later about why that is. But a fun fact about me is that before I started working in DevRel, I've changed careers a couple times. So I worked. I originally studied agricultural sciences, and I've worked in that field and education as well before transitioning over to tech and DevRel. So I have a pretty diverse background.
Oh, that's awesome. I really like a dev with a diverse background, and it's really really fun. So yeah, thank you for that really amazing intro. So I think the question on at the top of my mind is I'm just going to get right into it, right? Like,
Go for it.
why did we have to get, because in the JavaScript space, right, there's always one new framework being built, right? So with you in React space, for example, you have Next, you have Remix. What is Wasp in the sense of like a framework, and why did the React ecosystem, like, why does the React ecosystem need something like Wasp? Why not just use Remix or Next?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. A lot of people, I personally actually never used Rails before, but a lot of people talk about, and you see it pop up over and over again. Why isn't there something like Rails for the JavaScript ecosystem? And the founders of Wasp, the brothers Martin and Mattia, basically wanted to answer that question. Because a lot of times what happens is you're writing, whenever you start a new app, you're writing the same boilerplate code over and over and over again. And you still get that with a lot of the frameworks out there, a lot of the React and JavaScript frameworks out there. So that's basically the problem that Wasp set out to solve, is how can devs write less boilerplate code? And that is the problem that Wasp solves. Because it uses a declarative configuration file as kind of like the instructions for the app, you can just declare a few features, and all that boilerplate that you'd normally write gets managed and abstracted away for you. So it saves you a ton of time. It saves you from having to write the same boring stuff over and over again, and lets you really focus on the business logic of your app.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so Wasp is more because one of my pet peeves with a bunch of the frameworks we have in the JavaScript ecosystem is there has not been, in my opinion, not much focus on like getting you from 0 to 100 really quickly, like
Hmm.
how you could do in Rails world, in Lava world, even in Django, right? So Wasp is positioned to sort of like be the answer to that, especially for the React ecosystem, right?
Exactly. And in the future, it could be language agnostic. That's actually a plan.
Okay,
We're
UI
focusing
framework
now on.
agnostic.
Sorry.
Yeah, so it's mostly going to be agnostic for UI frameworks or UI libraries, right?
Yeah, but even for backend, um, because of the
Okay.
way it works, the same principles could be applied to Python, to Django, I mean, it could be
Oh,
applied to Next.js if we wanted to, but we thought that focusing on this stack first make the most sense, and let's prove that the concept works with a very popular stack, and then go from there. So that's why we're focusing on React and Node.js first.
That's fun. So, when you mention principles, what I hear is the sort of like, because principles most likely are strong opinions, right?
Yep.
That have proven to be true. So,
Mm-hmm.
what strong opinions does Wasp have in terms of building web software that you think it's really good, and um, why do you want to like transfer them to other languages and not just leave it for Node?
So to answer your question about like having strong opinions, to make sure I understood, I'm not
Mhm.
sure I understood it entirely, but I think to answer that question, like having this, do you mean having strong opinions for the framework? Like we're being opinionated, we're deciding the stack for you. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah. So you mentioned that the principles in Wasp can be applied to other
Mm-hmm.
languages. So those principles are what I want to know about.
Okay, yeah, it's basically remove the bullshit. Like there are tried and true methods
Okay.
out there that like everyone's using over and over and over again. So our stack and our framework is going to use those, right? It's like
Okay.
every developers like using
Mm.
Prisma, developers like using certain a React query. We're going to use those things and make sure you get the thing that helps you get from zero, like you said, 0 to 100, 0 to app idea as fast as possible. So that's the
Yeah,
basic principle of it all.
yeah, definitely. So I think in principles, not completely, but we sort of like at the point of removing the bullshit, we sort of like are in agreement on that one. It's also what I had in mind when I was building the boring stack, because it is just so much fluff, right? Where when all I want to do is just to ship my app, ship my MVP,
Yep. Yep.
or do my job really faster with my teams. I don't really care of the new bleeding edge. I just want something
Hmm.
stable, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, I agree with you on that one. Yeah. So
Hmm.
so I have a couple of questions here, right? So we're gonna get from Wasp down. One thing I have a strong opinion about is introducing newer DSLs, right?
Hmm.
For example, I see Wasp has a .wasp file.
Hmm.
Uh, it's meant to be your config file. What is a .wasp file? Let's start from there. And I think if we're going to remove the bullshit and also like try to keep things stable, what is the pros that Wasp is having by having his own .wasp file instead of like using,
Cool.
I don't know,
Yeah, that's a good
.js or
question.
.tx? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me like back up a little bit so that people who maybe don't know about Wasp will understand. So like I said before, and like you mentioned,
Mhm.
there's the config file, and you can think of that as like an umbrella for your entire app, or like the instructions for your app, right? And it's declarative, so
Okay.
you describe a feature, and our the thing we like to mention a lot is auth. You can really get auth in a few lines of code. You just in the config file write auth, right? And then you tell it what kind of auth you want,
Mm.
whether you want email auth, Google auth, GitHub auth, and you get that from the front end to the back end. You get full stack auth with pre-configured components because of that config file, right? So as long as you have your
Mm.
environment variables and things like that set up for, let's say, social auth, you get all that stuff automatically. It manages that boilerplate for you on the fly. So all you then have to do is just plug in your UI components where you want them, how you want them, and I'll show this later. Um,
Yeah,
so
for the
um, that's a good question. Like you asked, like if we're trying to remove the bullshit, why add a config file or like a new declarative language that people have to learn? And the response to that is that it's extremely simple. So one thing we're doing now in the future is we're removing lang from our name. So you'll see a lot of social media stuff will say wasp lang, because that gives people the wrong impression. They think they're learning a Turing complete language like JavaScript or Python or something,
yeah.
and that's not the case at all. It looks like JSON. It's very simple. You write your app auth, database, things like that, and then you declare the features. Pretty simple. So the other thing we're doing in order to kind of remove that intimidation factor for learning the framework is that we're implementing a TypeScript SDK, and that's coming out soon. We are restructuring a lot of how the framework works in the background, and you'll be able to also write that config file in TypeScript so that doesn't seem foreign to anybody.
Ooh, I like it. So
Yeah.
I think that sort of makes sense. So one thing that also sort of pisses me off in the JS ecosystem is the sort of that laid back opinion of, you know what, if you want auth, like really robust auth, go get a third party
Mm-hmm.
or use Firebase, Superbase, and all the favorite third
Yep.
parties for auth. And I
Yep.
feel that is, I don't know how I feel about it, but I kind of like I feel developers can have first party auth in their code. Either they write it or their framework provides it, like
Mm-hmm.
what Wasp is doing, which is
Exactly.
something I'm really, because it's actually being done in Rails and Laravel. So why do we
Mm-hmm.
have to be any different whereby you have to use a third party? It doesn't make any sense to me. But I really like that for that Wasp has that, and I really want to see that, especially the OAuth. OAuth, most times I think OAuth in the web dev in JavaScript space is synonymous to Firebase or something else. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But having OAuth first party in your code is really good. It just saves you the dependencies to track. And
Mm-hmm.
so definitely looking forward to seeing how that goes. And I also
Yeah.
see you focus on deployment, which is amazing, because of course after I finish building my apps, it's not supposed to be just on localhost. I want to see it in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I see your CLI offers deployment out of the box. That's really, really good.
Yeah.
And again, you're type safe, because I know JavaScript people, our
Mm-hmm.
people like type safety. So like, do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like, how does Wasp provide type safety from
Yeah,
client to
that's
server?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things that is really cool is that just comes out of the box, right? Because you've got this config file, and then the Wasp compiler is able to understand your app based on that config file. That when you type a backend function, automatically all of the type safety that's going on is abstracted away from you. But when you import that, we call them actions. When you import that action or operation on the front end and call it, you
Mm-hmm.
get the inferred types already automatically. And the great thing about that is if you're someone like that likes to use T3 with create T3 app, create T3 app with TRPC, you have to set
Yeah.
up TRPC, you have to set up the router, all that stuff. With Wasp, you don't have to do anything like that because it's all done for you. So that's really cool.
Mm. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. You don't have to do anything. It's all taken care of for you. I like it. Um. So yeah, thank you. That's really good. And I see you have email sending. In fact, you're more complete in terms of table stakes, like things one would need out of the box, of email
Mm-hmm.
sending and jobs. Let's talk a little bit about jobs. Jobs are not really very, because in Laravel world, like in their docs you have like jobs, and also but most times jobs are not front and center in JavaScript frameworks. Um, why is it front and center for you? Like, why didn't you not just give it to a third party?
Yeah, so like this thing you said about third parties is kind of very similar to how we feel, which is that you don't need to rely on third party as often as if the framework is taking care of that code for you, which is what Wasp is doing, is managing that code, right? To set up a jobs worker, or we use PG Boss in the background, which is an open source jobs worker, and like to set that up, it's not it's doable. All devs have most devs have the capability to do that, but it just takes time. It can be tedious, and so it's not that hard for the framework to be able to do that for you if you want it. And it's the same thing as Auth. It's just boilerplate code that's easy to abstract away, that we're able to extract away. So all you have to do is define a function that you want to run as a job or a queue, or like a cron job or a queue, and then you tell Wasp about that function in your config file, and all the the process of actually setting up that job is done by Wasp, and it takes and injects that function for you. So all you have to do is define the business logic. Wasp will take care of actually building the job for you. And I'll show like the same thing, auth, jobs, all the stuff. I can show it when we get to the code.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're spot on that. Like our frameworks, our stack, I feel they should do a good enough job to set us up for success. Like
Mm-hmm.
just imagine I come to like Wasp now. I already have emails, or if I have jobs, I just have to focus on my unique advantage or my unique business logic. I'll really move really quickly. So yeah, definitely
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. So speaking about moving quickly, um, okay, so what you launched, so tell us a little bit about what you just launched. Like, in the beginning of the show, I mentioned you just launched something on Product Hunt. Let's talk about it a little bit. And I do have some spicy question for you
Oh
after you
yeah,
intro it.
I love spicy questions. Yeah, so we
Yeah.
just launched OpenSaaS, and OpenSaaS is a full-featured SaaS boilerplate starter, and of course we're using Wasp as the framework for it. We just felt that there are all the SaaS starters out there right now, and people are paying a lot of money for some of them, and it seems kind of ridiculous. We
Mhm.
had already had an open source SaaS starter. Part of my job as DevRel was is building apps with Wasp, and I really enjoy using Wasp personally to build it. I have SaaS apps that are running that are bringing in money that I make a few $100 a month with that run on Wasp. And so the idea last year was, let's make a template to show other people how to do this quickly. And they can use that template when they start a new Wasp app through the CLI even. And then with the popularity of the SaaS starters, we thought, okay, let's build out the features a little more, and let's offer an open source one, because we think the community will actually, in the end, maintain and develop a more suitable SaaS boilerplate starter than one person might be able to. So as as devs' preferences change and evolve, this thing will change and evolve. And we thought it would be a cool thing for the community to have, and for the community to maintain. So that's the idea for the open sourcing a SaaS starter. And the other thing is that we think Wasp, because it has all these, like you said, it's able to kind of roll your own auth for you, and it manages jobs for you and manages email sending. You don't need to rely on a bunch of third-party services, which is often the case for a lot of SaaS starters in general, that they outsource auth to a third party, like you said, which can be expensive. Then you've got another other hosting and serverless functions. You've got an email sender. You've got a third party cron job service. So like Wasp can do all these things. Then you've got for you. You don't have to pay for it. Then you've got a free SaaS starter. The benefit for an indie hacker, or like an indie dev, is huge. They save so much money from the beginning. And yeah, we think Wasp is really well suited for SaaS apps for that reason.
I like it really. Um,
Oh,
I
and to answer
get
your
the
question,
idea, and so
that's what we just launched on Product Hunt. Sorry, that's what we
yeah,
just launched on Product Hunt
yeah,
today, and so far it's going well. I don't know what's going on at the moment, but maybe we can take a look when we transition. But yeah, that's going really well. So thanks for mentioning
yeah,
that.
definitely, yeah, for sure. Again, congrats on the launch.
Thanks.
I think we are seeing the heyday in JavaScript land, where a couple of the ecosystem just want um to build and ship stuff, right? And
Exactly.
that's that's why, like, I was excited when I see your SaaS template. I'm like, okay, this is cool, and it's open source, and I saw the what's in the stack. So my question, right, like, because like you've mentioned, SaaS templates are the rave these days, right? Like, there are paid
Mm.
ones, there are free
Mm.
ones. there's always a new template or Boiler template. So, in your opinion, what makes a good SaaS boilerplate?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think overloading it with too many features. I'm coming more from like the indie hacker, the solopreneur kind of thing. I think
Yeah,
devs
me too.
often get distracted by shiny technologies. So they kind of like seeing a list of different technologies in the stack, like a huge list. And I actually think that's a distraction. We do have a lot of technologies in the template, but I think we kept it to a good medium. You know, there's not too much. We've got like what I really like. Mattia had the idea that we add an admin dashboard, and it pulls in, it uses the Wasp jobs every hour to pull stats from your Stripe revenue, so your Stripe subscriptions and like your site
Oh,
analytics and stuff like that in the database, and then shows everything on a nice dashboard in one place. So, there's the main stats that you need. You've got subscriptions, you got payments with Stripe. We have an example app that shows you how to use function calling with OpenAI, with the OpenAI API, because a lot of people are interested in making AI-powered apps and SaaSes at the moment. So it's like these things, a decent-looking UI. We're going to improve on all these things in the future, we hope. But yeah, just to have a really clean, good, solid start without too much, without over engineering it, I think is good.
yeah, yeah. Like I 100% agree, especially the part of the shiny. I was so before this session, I was writing docs for the boring stack, and literally there's a page about that, the whole shiny and everything, because I feel like there's sort of like a wrong focus on the tools rather than the problems you're solving with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's intentional or because of the industry, like ebbs and flow. But for me, I really do not want to be. I want to be excited about the problems that I'm solving, and I
Exactly.
just want my tools to be as boring and stable as possible. I don't want no surprises. I want it to be predictable. Anytime I come to the app in like a year or two, if I get new people on board, the fundamental knowledge of whatever technology is still relevant for them to just
Mm.
get going really quickly, right?
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep. That makes sense. I think
that's awesome, man. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just thinking that like a lot of times focusing too much, like you shouldn't. Someone said, and I like this quote, something like, "You should fall in love with the end product, not the tools that you're using to create it." So it's like I think sometimes focusing on the tools is a good distraction when you don't have a good idea for a product, right? So you can talk about what you
Ooh.
made to build it. Yeah, you can talk about what you made to build it. You can have a good conversation with other devs and sound cool, but in the end it's like nobody wants to use your product. So maybe that's it. I don't know. It's just
Mm,
this I don't want to throw shade at
yeah,
anybody, but
I
I
like the shade.
personally yeah, I personally think that it's a bit of a distraction. So
Yeah, I hard agree, because I just feel like, like I think in your product hunt or even in your docs, you were like, get shipping and buy that Lambo or something like that. And
yeah,
even though
yeah,
it's a joke, it's sort of like,
yeah.
because in PHP, that the PHP is dead, or
Mm-hmm.
Rails is so old. People are just
Yeah.
building the stuff we depend on. Look at GitHub is built on Rails. Look at
Yep.
Shopify, Rails. A lot of these apps that we depend on are built on these other technologies.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in JavaScript land, we just wanna, anytime I see a post on X, I'll be like, yes, the stuff I built, full stop. Yeah, the technologies I use, this, and the
Mm.
list is just so long, and it's just lost in translation, because
Mm-hmm.
now I am wondering what you built, or you just combine technologies together. It's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
yeah,
I feel,
that's
yeah, go ahead.
no, that's just something that uh, I tried to, or we try to ignore at Wasp in general is that what you're talking about. So Yeah, totally agree.
Yes, please. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So, I have one question based on the OpenSaaS startup template. So on the docs, I'm wondering why you did opt for a first-party WAS provided Astro alternative. Then you have to outsource it to Astro,
For the
like for
for
docs and
the
blogs.
for docs and blog, it
Yeah,
just seemed easy. It just seemed
yeah.
easier than going, because we're not sure. We weren't sure if, like, do people really need a blog? Do we want to recreate that from scratch? Let's go with something that seems to work well. So I tried out. I checked out Astro, and they had a good Starlight template, and that just worked easy. So it's like, hey, if you want to implement a blog, your own docs and blog for your SaaS, just use this. This works better. We don't need to
Hmm.
reinvent the wheel. Pretty simple.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, um, I think I went the other way because I am still a big fan of Astro. My website
Mm-hmm.
is on Astro, but I find out that for my SaaS application, because I'm working on one right now called Hackfish, and
Mm-hmm.
with Astro, what happens is if I want to build like my SaaS application, like maybe example.com, and I need a blog, I have to do blog.example.com, right?
Yeah.
And it sort of felt too much for an indie hacker like myself that want to keep everything in a single place. Why don't I just
True.
have example.com/blog? So
Yeah.
I discovered that the essential thing from Astro I needed was just having the markdown turned into HTML. So I literally built that into like an add-on to the boring stack where you just have to have a content folder. Then you put your markdown in folders in there. Then
Mm,
when you run your server, it just gets made into HTML. So
yeah.
I that was my thinking in keeping everything together. So how does that work in WAS? Do you still have to do the subdomain thing, or is it all cohesive?
Well, for open SaaS, that's the beauty of it being open source, is that, Kelvin, you're free to make a pull request and add a new feature if you'd like, and
Okay.
get us our own integrated blog. No, that's a really good idea. I just didn't
Mm-hmm.
focusing on other stuff. This is totally possible, and yeah, like if we had enough uh, if we had enough people that were requesting something like that, we could totally implement it. There's an easy feature in
Okay.
Wasp that will run a function on server start every time. So, you can just tell, like we talked about before, you just define that function, tell Wasp where it lives, say that that's the server startup
Mm-hmm.
function, and it'll run, and then it could
Yeah.
convert all that markdown into HTML for you, just like you're talking about.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Sure. It's just something I've been thinking about for a while, and
Mm,
I like my I love Astro for so if what I'm building is just a blog, I'm definitely gonna just okay, not really because the thing I built right now is really really good and it works for my use case. But if it's docs, I'm probably gonna reach out for Astro, right?
mm,
Because I think it's just really really good for that. But if it's like for a SaaS application, my blog is mostly content marketing. It's not really all
mm-hmm.
that fancy. You just have like a layout, say markdown. I just feel
True.
making it one sort of like makes sense. That's just what I've been thinking about. But yeah, definitely. If your ecosystem wants it, I can
Yeah.
definitely ship in on and the thing I also built is open source, so we could definitely share ideas. Open source is for
Cool.
everyone and we
Cool.
can collaborate and
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
further better. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
So enough words, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Let's
think
jump in.
enough words. I want to see Wasp and OpenSaaS. Let's see. So you share your screen and show me what you've got.
Okay. Let me just share my entire screen because that'll probably be the easiest. And you let me know if
Okay.
everything is coming up here. Do you see OpenSaaS now?
I think it's gonna give it a little bit. It's still not here yet.
Okay. Screen. Entire screen.
Do you think it needs permission of
Share.
this?
How about now? Hmm.
Hmm.
Let me try and
Still
share
not
the
showing.
window then. No. Let me try the
Yeah.
window.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh wow.
Cool.
Okay. It didn't work for yeah, screen work for window. So
First
now we have
screen.
Inception going on. I like Inception.
Yeah. How's it looking now?
Okay. Oh yeah, perfect. I like it.
Okay. So yeah, if you just let me know if something's not working, but I'll run through OpenSaaS now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, stop me if you have any questions. So here's the landing page, and this is the whole demo app is deployed with OpenSaaS with the template. So when you get the template, when you clone the GitHub repo, you see like a simplified version of this basically. And yeah, here's the landing page. It's all built in Tailwind CSS. You got your features section and your testimonials, frequently asked questions. So all simple stuff you'd expect. Very simple. Of course, you got to have dark mode for the devs. Then when you I'm already
Mm-hmm.
logged in, but once you log in, when you log in yourself in the demo app, everyone gets automatically set up as an admin. And this thing I really like. So here's the admin dashboard, and it's set up. I have everything. I have test products set up in Stripe. So the deployed OpenSaaS app is running through with Stripe test products. So when you check out, you can use the supplied fake credit card, and these are actually the data from. So I don't have profit set up, but revenue I do. And this is the data coming from Stripe from people just testing out the app. So that's really cool. So I've also got it hooked up to Plausible Analytics. We have a self-hosted version of Plausible, and the total page views you're seeing here, and this is the daily increase in views. So that's good to see. We're getting more traffic from the launch probably. And you see here again also the total revenue. So people have made, fake transactions, but we have 85 people who tried it out, You see the sources through Plausible Analytics. So Direct is our main one. Twitter is the second there. So not sure why it's coming up out of order there. But yeah, so just like a really nice dashboard. And we've got like fake use. I seeded the database with fake users. So you can mess around with the like kind of admin. You can change user privileges and things like that and filter them based on their payment status and all this kind of stuff. So these are people who would have past due payments, for example, with customers that registered, but like maybe a credit card failed or something like that. So that's really cool. One overview of what's going on with your SaaS app in the admin dashboard. Now let's go to I told you we had a AI demo app. That's basically what I made for this was just a really simple example so people can see how to use the OpenAI API, specifically with function calling. So I can add tasks here, right? Like I want to learn Wasp.
Yeah.
And I think we already have that there. But you set the task and how many hours you want to allot to that task for your day. And then you say, I'm going to work for 8 hours today. And then you tell it to generate a schedule for you. And because we're using function calling, we won't just get back a stream of text like you usually get with ChatGPT. We'll get back JSON in the format that we told OpenAI to return it back. So we'll go ahead there and click Generate Schedule. And this is using 3.5 Turbo, GPT 3.5 Turbo. So it's cheaper. It's a little bit faster. And you see what I asked it to do was take each task here, give it a priority, and break it up into subtasks so I can plan my day. So you see here, respond to users on Discord. Now this is GPT 3.5 gives some shitty answers sometimes, but 30 minutes per user. Learn Wasp. We're going to read the documentation and for an hour, watch tutorial videos for 2 hours, and practice coding examples for 30 minutes. That's all questionable there, but gives it high priority. And you just see it's a cool way to see how you can use the OpenAI API in a bit of a creative way there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like the details so far. Like this is really robust. I like it.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. And then you've got your pricing page in the app behind login. So I've already paid, so
No.
I can manage my subscription, and it will come. It's got all that stuff set in. And then, like you were talking about, we've got documentation and blog for OpenSaaS itself. So we did a nice thing like an intro, what's inside, talked about the features that me and you just talked about basically, and how you get started in a guided tour, which is really nice. So it tells you like how everything's structured, how the Wasp config file works, where your client and server code lives, the main features like auth, subscription payments, so that you get a feel for, you understand how it's set up currently at the moment, and then guides to set up your authentication. And like we were talking about before, this is a good opportunity to just show you, like, this is what your Wasp file would look like, right? And we were talking about having a DSL or a new language, but like this is pretty simple. If you know JavaScript, if you can create, if you can make, if you're at the point where you're trying to make your own SaaS app and know how to program in React and stuff like that, like you'll be able to figure this out, right? You've got auth, you've got a user entity, and you've got methods. You have username and password. You can add Google or GitHub, and literally it's just that. You can add Google and GitHub with curly braces, and it'll scaffold all that for you, and it manages it for you on the fly. So it doesn't just generate code and leave you to deal with it. It'll continue to manage it, and I can show that in a second. So yeah, that's like OpenSaaS in a nutshell. I went into pretty good detail to show you how to integrate Stripe, because that's still pretty hard. It's a lot of new information if you've never used Stripe before. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's dope, really.
Thank you.
So I also see, yeah, so email sending is also a key thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know most so can you walk through what you're doing there? You're using, I see it's mostly SendGrid and SMTP. Yes?
Yep. So for OpenSaaS, I used SendGrid. So you would just go to SendGrid and get your API key. And then again, in the config file, like you see here,
Mm-hmm.
you'll just tell it that you're using SendGrid as the provider, and then default from. So you'll tell every time you want to send an email, you want the name of the sender of your app, OpenSaaS app, and the email address to be that email address that you used to sign up with SendGrid. And then here's an example of how we used it in our Stripe webhook, right? So we import that email sender from
Nice.
Wasp, as you see here. So what Wasp has created, based on
Mm-hmm.
this information in the config file, these 5 lines, Wasp will manage that for you. You import the email sender, and then in the case that we have someone cancel, right? So we're in the webhook, we get a webhook event from Stripe, and someone's canceled. Then we say, await email sender, and we send to that customer's email address, the one that just canceled, a little email saying like, oh, here's an offer for 20% discount, or give us some feedback why you canceled. That would be great. So that's actually comes in OpenSaaS, is email sending features just like this one that you see here.
Mm. Yeah, that's really, really good. So in so since you use SMTP, that means any provider that supports the SMTP protocol can be used, right? So something like Recent, I
Mm-hmm.
think Recent has an SMTP too.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Postmark as well? So yeah, so cool. So do
Yeah.
you have to? So how does that play when you want to specify that in the provider? Is there like a custom provider or something, or SMTP provider?
Provide exactly. If it works right now out of the box with SendGrid and
Oh,
Mailgun,
okay.
or if I'm not exactly sure, if you want to use your own SMTP provider, you would put SMTP here and then provide those details. I know we have in the Wasp docs how that works exactly. I'm not sure beyond that. I would have to
Okay.
check it out, so I can't answer that. But yeah, for
Yeah,
something like
that's fine.
SendGrid or Email Gun, it's just API key in your environment variables, and then this is all you got to do for sending emails.
That's dope. Let's take a look a little bit on two things. Deploying I
Mm-hmm.
see in Product Hunt and in the OpenSaaS docs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you mostly support deployment to fly.
Yeah, that's the first provider that we tested out this one command deploy option
Okay.
with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Cool.
that's what
So
we
yeah,
have.
if
We have
okay. Mhm.
yeah, sorry, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, so I was just thinking, because I don't use Fly personally, so if I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
use this, I'm going to have to use this with render. So
Mm-hmm.
how will that play out? That means I don't have access to the deploy command anymore.
Exactly. We want to make this
Okay.
is kind of like a proof of concept, and we want to uh, expand it to other hosting providers. But for the moment, we only have Fly. And what the cool thing is that we basically wanted to test this feature out with one that we knew, and that was Fly. And we will
Okay.
push it out to other hosting providers. So if
Mhm.
you do like Fly, this command here will build and launch the whole stack, front end, back end, and database to Fly, along with environment variables and everything for you. So that's really cool. If not, you
Cool.
have to do Wasp build, and then you have to deploy the Docker file and the client yourself.
Oh, Docker file. So
Mm-hmm.
Wasp is always deployed in a Docker container. Yes.
Always the server always is when you use Wasp build. Of course, the client is not, but in this case with deploying
Okay.
to Fly.io, I think it yeah, the entire app the client and backend are both Docker containers.
Okay. Cool. Now you're mentioning the client and the server. Getting really keen to see the photo structure of us because I'm having in my mind I'm thinking a full stack where everything is one, but
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a little bit of separation. Even if it's in a single code base, you could deploy them differently. So I really, really want to see. Do you before we go, could you talk a little bit about the second auth, which is authorization? Like what sort of um what do you support in those? Like back or how does that work?
Um, do you mean for authorization?
Yes, authorization. I think we already touched on authentication with social
Yeah,
logins
we
and stuff.
exactly. Right now we
Mm.
support username and password, which is really simple. Then we have email verified auth. So using your email sender that we showed earlier, you get the email verification and reset password and stuff like that, and forgotten password options. And then we have GitHub for social auth. Just at the moment, we support GitHub and Google, but the next week with the update, we are going to be using Lucia auth under the hood, and then will also open us up to all the providers, auth providers that they use.
Mhm.
So for authorization at the moment, the way auth works is pretty straightforward, and we're not doing anything crazy here in OpenSaaS. It's just showing how you can protect pages. So protect pages and routes
Okay.
via your WASP file by just adding auth required is true. Then we protect those routes, so you can't go to your account settings, of course, unless you're logged in, right? And then by doing that,
No.
you don't have to
Um.
create on your page, on your the React page that you're writing. You don't have to check for a logged in user. Um, Wasp will set up the router for you and do that check in the background.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. No, this
Cool.
is really really fun. So yeah. So let's see some code. Let's geek out a little bit. Get ready to be
Okay.
probed for with questions from a noob
Okay.
on Wasp
Okay.
backend.
Okay. So Kelvin, what would you like to see?
So
Sorry, I
let's
didn't hear you there.
see.
Can you repeat that?
No, I said this is perfect. Do you want to increase
Okay.
your editor font a little bit? Yeah, so that the people could
Sure.
see.
People can
Okay.
see.
Main.wasp looks a
Let
little
me go
busy.
through. Yeah, let's go to an example I have here that is a little bit smaller. It's a small to-do app. So here we've got the main.wasp file, and you see we've just defined like the basic structure of the app, right? We want to create a to-do app. We want auth with a few different methods here. Right now, I've only got the username and password because I'm going to show you an example in a minute. But we're going to add Google and GitHub auth. Yeah, the client just shows what our root component is. So we want to have a root wrapper, like an app, like in Next.js, people usually call that the app component, and that wraps everything within every page within one component. We've got some dependencies there. And just to note that this will change, the TypeScript SDK is coming, so you'll be able to write this file in TypeScript. You'll be able to install your dependencies via npm, package.json, like you typically would. So yeah, then we've got database entities here, and this is using Prisma under the hood. So we're just defining them using Prisma schema language. And then we've got our operations, which are our server actions and queries. So like get all tasks, your basic CRUD operations and stuff like that. We've defined those here, and we're telling Wasp where those functions live, right? So we define them in our queries.js file, and then we can import them on the front end, which is really cool. And
Nice.
we've got routes, and this is also where we would define cron jobs, for example, like we were talking about earlier. I'll switch real quick to the OpenSaaS. So you have here a daily stats job, and you can see we're performing this function every hour, right? This is just a function that pulls from the different data APIs and the kind of parses all that data and saves it to the database so that we can display it on our admin dashboard.
Nice.
So that's really cool.
Amazing
and another
stuff.
interesting thing worth noting is that you see entities here. So we're using React query under the hood. And a lot of times you have to invalidate cache and you have to be responsible for that. But if you tell Wasp which database entity you're going to be dealing with, every time we call the get all tasks function on the front end, we'll automatically get cache invalidation and reloading, without having to specify it or do it ourselves, which is pretty cool. So that's what a Wasp file looks like. Yeah. And let's see, let me just go ahead and we'll start that app by running wasp start. And
yeah,
I'm not sure.
While
Can
you're
you
doing
see
that, I have a question.
Maybe I have to switch. Yeah, hold it. Sorry, let me switch to the full screen so that I get the entire. I want to be able to see everything, right? So you can see the to-do app now. Yes. All right, good. So yeah, I just started up my app there. So go ahead with questions.
Yeah, so I think we didn't mention one key ingredient for making a SaaS application or like a full stack app, which is databases. Do you have opinions on that, or you could use whatever Prisma supports?
In the future, we want to allow that. At the moment, we're just going with Postgres. So yeah, you can use SQLite or you can use Postgres as your database.
Okay, cool. That's fair. And this login page is super cool. I like it.
Cool, thanks. So that was the app the to-do app that we just pulled up. So for example, let's switch real quick to our code here. Now I've got the environment variables already plugged in, but if I go ahead and I just uncomment out Google, when the app refreshes, we'll go over to our thing. Yeah, where we go? Let's see here. Sorry about that. There we are. And you see now we've already got Google in a Google button, Google login on our login page that we didn't have before. And I can do the same thing with the GitHub. We add the GitHub login there. and we get the GitHub button in there.
Hmm,
So just like
that's
that,
amazing.
yeah, because of the having a declarative config file. And just real quick to show you what the login page looks like, this is what we're importing on the login page. We get these components that Wasp will build and manage for us, and that's it. So in the end, right, we're changing from the config file, we're telling it we want Google and we want and GitHub, and it's regenerating that component for us each time we make that change. So that's really cool. We don't have to do anything to our login form there. We just import that from Wasp and use it.
Okay, and that's cool. Just one question:
Mm-hmm.
what's the story behind configuration? Like changing colors and stuff. Like how do we do that? Props.
Yep, we've got props, exactly. You've got appearance, logo, social layout. And if you don't want to use the pre-configured component at all, you can import, there's another import, you can just import the login and sign out functions and then build your own component however you want.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah,
So,
it's good.
so let's go back and let's just log in. Oh, network error. Why is that? Of course, when you're doing a live demo, something's got to go wrong, right?
Yeah, demo gods, demo gods.
Yeah. So sign up. Let's see if I. Interesting. Do I have it loaded right in this one?
Yeah.
Let's
Do you think the
get rid of
server
that
is
one.
started too? Or maybe want to start it again?
Yeah, let me restart. There
Yeah.
we go. Let's go back to login.
Okay. If you're using Vite, that's cool.
Username is required. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Yes, we are using Vite.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. So I can show, for example, like how the server operations work. So let's go to our config file real quick, and we'll go down here where the actions were. And I've got the normal CRUD operations, right? Like get all tasks, create a task, update a task, right? When we toggle it. So for example, deleting a task, I've got it set it up here already. We would do the same thing. We say we want this to be an action, right? Not a query. So we're going to do some sort of change to the database, a mutation. So we're going to call it delete task, and we're importing delete task from our actions folder here, or actions file, I'm sorry. And in our actions file, you see we've got create task and update task. So we want to do export an async function called delete task, right? And we're going to give it our task ID, and context gets passed every time through by Wasp through to the actions on the server. So context is like, if you've used Prisma before, we're accessing the Prisma entity, and we're accessing Prisma through context here. So we're going to delete that based on its task ID. Now we're exporting that function. We've defined it in our config file. So when we go to our main page, we can import the delete task from Wasp actions delete task. And then I've got it already here, but we've got a button that on click calls delete task and should delete it. So let's see now, if we go to our thing, we click it, right? And then we have a button and we can delete it.
Nice.
Yep.
I see you're using a component library. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah,
Or is
I
that Wasp
personally
custom?
no, I personally use Chakra here. But OpenSaaS uses Tailwind CSS.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So,
good. I know Chakra.
I like Chakra a lot.
Nice. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Any more Wasp magic you want to show me? So I guess my only not a problem, but one thing I noticed for my MVC brain is that in your main.wasp, you have a lot of routes in there, you have your actions in there. Doesn't it get too busy? And in terms of you living the flexibility is good, but now I could write, there's no kind of like a standard. So the Prisma is also in there too. Like how, like, don't you think it's gonna get too overwhelming if the project gets really big?
Big. Yeah. And that's something that a concern that we're addressing. So this launch for OpenSaaS and all this stuff is part of our launch week, and next week we're launching a new version of Wasp
Okay.
with a total restructuring. You get the TypeScript SDK, and support for like multiple Wasp files is coming, so where you can break everything up and right, you wouldn't have to have everything living
Yes.
only within one file. So a little bit of separation of concerns there,
Yeah.
if that's what you're after.
Yeah, please. It's it just makes sense when you can.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
pro MVC anytime, any day. So yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Any good? Let me check my notes if I have any more questions. Yeah, I think so far we covered everything because so database is it's handled by Prisma, so definitely we don't need to go through all the CRUD operations and things like that. So for CSS frameworks, you support Tailwind out of the box with Wasp, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the only okay, yeah. I love
Yeah, but
Tailwind,
you
so
saw,
I love
yeah,
it
it
that
works.
you do. Yeah. Yeah, but you can also use anything you want. Like you're using Chakra right now, and it plays really, really well. So yeah. Yeah, I think this is amazing. Like that's one thing about an amazing tech. You don't really have to, it's not too overwhelmingly much to learn. You just kind of get it and you just get going on your stuff. So yeah, I think we're good. This
Exactly.
is really good. Is it, yeah, any other thing you want to touch on pretty quickly? No, I think I have a question. So
Sure.
it's in so how is navigation in WASP? Is it client side navigation or server side? So when you're using a
Yeah.
WASP, when you build a WASP app, you're building an SPA. Is that it?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we're
Okay.
using Vite under the hood, but yeah, you're getting a single page application. We've had some requests for to implement server side rendering, and we can do that with certain Vite plugins. We haven't seen it as like we want to get around to it, but it's not the first thing that we're going to first feature that we're going to add, because for things like SaaS apps and stuff like that, a spa is what you're really after. And then when you add a blog and things like that, you get pretty good SEO. But if you're after SSR and it's like a no-go for you to use Wasp because there's no SSR, then yeah, that will come as well in the future. So we will be implementing that.
Yeah, definitely. That's fun. Cool. Thank you. This is amazing. I think it's good. The ecosystem needs it for folks who know React that just want to build stuff really quickly. They
Exactly.
just pick up Wasp or pick up the OpenSaaS that is your open source template and just get around
Yep.
building stuff, and they could easily deploy. And I'm really keen on what you guys are launching next. So at of
Yep.
the
Lots
time
of
of
features coming.
publishing this video, yeah, you might already have launched. So I don't know. So I will
Yeah,
definitely
next.
give a shout out in the description.
That's true. By the time this video comes out, all the features I was mentioning should be newly released. You'll be able to use the TypeScript SDK. There
Oh,
will be lots of other features. Yep. But
awesome.
hopefully,
Cool.
this inspired some people to give things a try. Try out OpenSaaS. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Leave an issue in the GitHub repo. Yeah, we got a really cool growing community. I mean, we're still a lesser known framework in a world of many JavaScript frameworks, but it's really motivating that we're constantly getting good feedback. We're getting people building businesses with Wasp, even though it's still in beta. They're building businesses. They're selling their SaaS apps. We've had numerous apps be acquired that have used Wasp. I'm running SaaS app. There are legal lawyers that built SaaS apps with Wasp. So it's getting used internally at companies. So this is really cool. We're really excited for the future, and we're just going to keep pumping out new features and updates and making it better. So check it out.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's cool. Yeah, I think we can stop sharing your screen and just wrap up here.
Cool.
So thank you so much, Vince. This was amazing seeing uh an amazing open source web framework that aims to be Wheels like, and also the open SaaS template. I really like it. So if folks want to reach out to you about WASP or any other thing in like SaaS or whatever, like where do people reach out to you from?
Yeah, so you can find the homepages at wasp.sh. And
Mm-hmm.
we're all on Twitter. The OpenSaaS is opensaaS.sh. And there you have links to the GitHub repo, Discord, Twitter. We have a good community on Discord. That's the best place to pop in if you have questions or want to give feature suggestions or anything to us, all the developers, the whole team. We're a small team. We're 5 at the moment. And yeah, we're very responsive. The nice thing about being a smaller framework is you can get help from the creators and maintainers of the framework itself, like right away. So yeah, that's where you can reach us, and we'd be happy to help anyone has any questions or concerns.
Yeah, definitely. Is there any two things, anything you want to plug? Because as a teacher on TKYT, you get to plug anything. You have a plug away slot, and also any final party in SaaS development, web dev development words first.
I think we've plugged enough. You gave us a nice platform here to plug OpenSaaS and Wasp. So thanks a lot for that, Kelvin. That was really cool. Thank you for reaching out. And I don't really have any wise words. I just if you have, I think there are a lot of devs out there that they have like an idea, especially for a SaaS lately, and they want to go for it. It doesn't matter what framework you use. Like Kelvin, like you said, like if you know it and it gets you to where you want to go, just build it. You know, that's the one that works. Don't get caught up in all the marketing and stuff from other people. I'm not here to convince you to use Wasp or any other framework. In the end, like just do your thing, build it,
Yeah,
get it done.
yeah, I think so. I think at the end, the best tech is the one that lets you get from, like I said, 0 to 100,
Yep.
and also is the one you know. At most times, the all this tech they're so often at feature parity with one another. So it just makes sense to just pick the one you know, or if you're in the market shopping for anything, just pick the one that makes you move really quickly. Don't
Yep.
be overly invested in the shiny. So yeah, thank you so much, Vince. This
Yep.
was amazing. Thank you so much for
Cool.
your time.
Thank you, Kelvin.